Deep below the ocean surface, a large crack in the Earth's crust created a doorway to another dimension. The breach, as it was called, was a bridge between an alien world and Earth. No one suspected that one day a giant monster would pass through the breach and tear up an entire city in a few short days. All the firepower in the world was no match for the giant creatures, or kaijus, that rose out of the breach.
When alien life entered our world, it was from deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. A fissure between two tectonic plates. A portal between dimensions. The breach.
Each kaiju was different from the others, but they were all the size of buildings and were bent on destruction. For many years, the people of Earth fought these kaijus as they came, and each time they realized that they were outmatched. Finally, the governments of the world worked together to build massive robots that were controlled by two pilots. With these massive and fierce robots, called Jaegers, Earth started winning. Jaegers were seen as the answer, but kaijus got bigger and bigger. Their time was running short. Alarms went off in a small room, and a tall young man rolled off the bunk and slapped the alarm bell off. The alarms were letting the entire army base know that a kaiju had come through the breach, and it was time to go to work. Raleigh and his brother Yancey were Jaeger pilots of a robot named Gypsy Danger. Raleigh was young and eager to go into battle, as he and his brother had beaten 4 kaijus in the past. His brother told him not to get cocky, but it was hard not to be confident. They were brothers and could hold their own in a fight. Both of the men walked into their control room and suited up for battle.
Yo, Yancey, wake up! Movement in the breach. Hey, come on! We're being deployed. Kaiju's category 3. Biggest one yet. Code name, Knifehead. What do you say? That's a notch on the belt?
Hey, kid.
Yeah?
Don't get cocky.
Their orders were to go out, fight, and destroy the kaiju, codenamed Knifehead. It was the largest beast to come through the breach so far. The brothers dropped in and hooked up to Gypsy Danger and dropped into the ocean, headed for the kaiju. They burst through the surface of the water, grabbed the beast by the neck, and delivered punch after punch to the skull of the alien monster. They lifted it up and tossed it across the water, and it came crashing down. It disappeared into the dark water. Then, without notice, it sprang out of the water and grabbed hold of Gypsy Danger. The brothers held it off with one hand and used their powerful plasma cannon to light it up with 2 blasts to the stomach. It fell into the water.
Lit it up twice! Backed our 5th kill!
You disobeyed a direct order!
Respectfully, sir! We intercepted the kaiju and saved everyone on that boat!
Get back to your post now!
Yes, sir!
Kaiju signature rising!
The brothers were happy that they had won. But just then, the beast jumped out of the water again and stabbed the Jaeger with its knife head and tore off Gypsy's arm. Raleigh screamed in pain and looked over at his brother. He watched as the kaiju ripped half of Gypsy's head off, taking Yancey with it. Raleigh switched the plasma cannon to his other arm and blasted the monster over and over and over again until it was finally beaten. Raleigh somehow piloted Gypsy Danger to shore before he collapsed in exhaustion. Raleigh disappeared until it was time that he was needed again. After this epic fight, Jaeger started losing to the kaijus, who got bigger and bigger. The world government decided that attacks were happening too quickly and they couldn't keep building Jaegers just to see them destroyed. They decided to build a huge wall that would keep the kaijus away from cities. A man named Marshall, who was in charge of the Jaeger program, decided he was going to try one more time to destroy the breach. He gathered all of the last pilots in the world and all of the last remaining Jaegers for one last mission. He needed to find Raleigh. Marshall found Raleigh hiding amongst workers building the security wall. Just as Marshall and Raleigh were talking, a news reporter showed them footage of a kaiju breaking through the very wall that was supposed to keep the world safe. Marshall and his men were the world's only hope. Raleigh didn't want to go, but when he realized that the world could end, he decided to go with Marshall.
Haven't you heard, Mr. Beckett? The world is coming to an end. So where would you rather die? Here? Or in a Jaeger?
Inside the giant military base, Marshall walked Raleigh and introduced him to the other Jaeger pilots and their giant war machines, called Crimson Typhoon, Cherno Alpha, Striker Eureka, and of course, Gypsy Danger.
Crimson Typhoon, China. One of the greatest. Assembled in Shansu. Full titanium core, no alloys. 50 diesel engines per muscle strand. Deadly precise fighter. That tank, last of the T-90s. Cherno Alpha. First generation Mark 1. The heaviest, oldest Jaeger in the service, but make no mistake, Mr. Beckett. It's a brutal war machine. Striker Eureka. Fastest Jaeger in the world. First and last of the Mark 5s.
Raleigh couldn't pilot Gypsy alone, so Marshall decided to pair him with a young pilot named Mako. Mako was a rookie who had short black hair. She lost her parents in a kaiju attack and wanted nothing more than to get revenge and exterminate all kaijus. She and Raleigh paired well, and they were ready for battle. Suddenly, alarms went off inside the base, and the head scientist brought up cameras from the breach. 2 kaijus had broken through and were heading towards the city. These were the biggest kaijus ever, and it was the first time that 2 had come through at the same time. Pilots raced to their Jaegers, and giant helicopters lifted them into the sky and carried them into battle.
Excuse me.
Breach was exposed at 2300 hours. We have 2 signatures, both Category 4s. They'll reach Hong Kong within the hour.
Crimson Typhoon. Cherno Alpha, I want you to front line the harbor. Stay on the Miracle Mile. Striker, I want you to stay back. We cannot afford to lose you, so only engage as a final option.
Yes, sir.
Cherno Alpha and Crimson Typhoon took the lead with Striker Eureka staying behind to protect the city. Gypsy Danger was still back at base. Cherno Alpha ran into battle through the water off the coast and connected with a tall, skinny kaiju. It had long limbs and a tail with spikes on it that swung back and forth. Cherno landed a few punches, but the strong tail of the kaiju blasted it across the water. Crimson Typhoon jumped in with its 3 arms with spinning blades on the end. It connected and sliced into the kaiju while dodging its tail. It was winning. Then, out of the water, the other giant beast jumped out and onto the back of Crimson Typhoon. The weight of it crippled the Jaeger, and both kaijus tore the robot apart before letting it sink to the bottom of the ocean. Cherno Alpha ran back into the fight, but it was no match for both beasts. They tore through Cherno Alpha like a toy, and it too sank into the water. Strike Eureka decided to run into the fight and open its cannon for a full blast, but one of the kaijus shrieked, sending a shockwave through the city, shutting down all electricity. Striker was shut down and helpless. One kaiju swam towards the city, while the other stayed to destroy Striker Eureka. Just when the kaiju was about to tear into Striker, a bright light showed overhead. It was a giant helicopter, and it dropped Gypsy Danger into the fight. Raleigh and Mako fought together and threw some devastating punches. They picked up the giant monster and threw it across the sea. The monster came back and tackled the giant robot, sending them crashing on land. Back and forth the kaiju and Gypsy battled. They picked up cars, trucks, buildings, and hit each other with those objects. The monster came at Gypsy one more time, and Raleigh and Mako were able to brace themselves. They held the beast at bay with one arm, then opened their plasma cannon. They waited until it had full power, then they blasted the monster in the stomach again and again until it fell. They had won this battle, but there was another kaiju destroying the city, and Gypsy headed that way. The tall, skinny kaiju had crumbled half the city to the ground with his long arms and a giant tail. Gypsy walked through the rubble, dragging a giant iron ship beside it. Raleigh and Mako swung the ship around and cracked the kaiju right on the jaw. The beast swung its tail, but Gypsy was able to dodge it and deliver another punch right to the chin. The kaiju clawed and scratched at Gypsy, but it couldn't do any real damage. It swung its snake-like tail and wrapped it around Gypsy's arm while the beast clawed and scratched. Gypsy was fighting with one arm, but then Mako sent a freezing cold blast to the tail, and it shattered into a million pieces. Gypsy now, with 2 free hands, punched and pulled the tongue out of the kaiju. It screamed in pain, then jumped on top of Gypsy and grasped it with its giant feet. The kaiju spread its arms, and then it spread its wings. The kaiju flapped its wings and took Gypsy high into the sky above the earth. Raleigh and Mako had no more weapons and were surely going to be destroyed. Mako had one last idea. She pressed a button and a giant sword appeared out of Gypsy's arm, and together they sliced the kaiju in half. They fell to the earth and landed with a boom. They had won, but at great cost. They lost 2 Jaegers. Raleigh and Mako returned to a loud, cheering base. Everyone was happy that the Jaegers had been victorious, but that happiness was short-lived. 2 scientists ran in and told everyone that 3 more kaijus had come through the breach. 2 of the kaijus were big, and one was the biggest that the world had ever seen. The 3 alien beasts swam around the breach as if protecting it from something. The entire base scrambled to get Gypsy and Stryker ready for battle. This time was going to be different. This time, Stryker Eureka was going to have a giant bomb and was going to blow up the breach, and Gypsy was going to be his backup. This was their last chance to save the world.
Today there's not a man nor woman in here that shall stand alone. Not today. Today we face the monsters that are at our door and bring the fight to them. Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Stryker and Gypsy were dropped into the water and sunk deep into the ocean. They walked along the bottom of the ocean until they came upon a bright light in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, Gypsy was struck on the head by a kaiju swimming like a shark through the water. Gypsy was sent reeling against a rock, and Stryker was all alone, facing the biggest kaiju ever. It growled, and Stryker Eureka swung its arm down, drawing metal swords out of its wrists. Meanwhile, Gypsy was attacked again, and the fast kaiju bit off Gypsy's arm. It swam away and returned, but this time Gypsy pulled out its sword and dove at the kaiju and cut it from its mouth to its tail. Gypsy, with one arm and a wounded leg, limped over to help Stryker deliver the bomb. Stryker had its hands full. It swung and swung its swords but barely caused any damage to the giant monster. The massive beach grabbed a hold of Stryker and started pulling it apart. Marshall, the pilot of Stryker, knew it was the end for them. Marshall told Raleigh and Mako what to do and how to end it. Stryker waited until the massive kaiju grabbed a hold of it one more time before the pilots blew themselves up to clear a path for Gypsy Danger to blow up the breach.
Both kaijus are converging on Stryker, fast!
Hang on, Stryker! We're coming to you! No! Gypsy! Do not come to our aid! Do you copy?
Hang on!
Stay as far back as you can!
We can still reach you! We're coming for you!
No, Riley, listen to me! You know exactly what you have to do! Gypsy is nuclear! Take her to the breach!
I hear you, sir. Heading for the breach.
Gypsy grabbed a hold of a dead kaiju and jumped into the breach. They floated down the hole into the earth slowly, and a whole other world opened up. Gypsy floated down and landed in another dimension. Thousands of little aliens were looking at this giant metal robot in front of them. Raleigh and Mako set the self-destruct bomb on Gypsy, and the countdown began. They jumped into an escape pod and ejected themselves back towards the surface. Just before the breach closed, they saw a huge explosion decimate the little alien world. The breach fell apart and collapsed just as Raleigh and Mako reached the surface. They had won. They had saved the world and closed the breach forever. The end.